Thank you for attending our panel session this afternoon set again, on how to maintain competitive edge in the independent and the boutique sector. We're mainly going to be looking at how emerging trends can affect the sector, where we can stay in front with a real customer focus. Myself, I'm Conor from UK Active. Hopefully you won't be listening to me too much today. I'll be passing over to our amazing panellists who will be introducing themselves shortly. Please be quite interactive, ask any questions as you're going through. Throw some more curveballs in as I'm hoping to throughout the day. I'm going to pass straight over to my right hand side.
Thank you. Hi guys, my name's Alina Cooper. I am the Managing Director and Co-founder of Get Set Go Group Limited. We build luxury swimming pools across London, and we have 5 schools currently, and we teach about 3,000 children a week to swim. I also wear a different hat. I have a consultancy business as well, which I've had for over 10 years. And I currently consult as well for Studio Grow, who are an international consultancy company for the boutique sector. And we work with around 2,000 studios across 40 countries, consulting on both starting your business profitably right the way through to helping you scale and grow your businesses.
Hi, I'm Tiff Gould. I've been working in the leisure sector for about 20 years, primarily in the digital transformation area. I run my own consultancy business, so I have the pleasure of working with a variety of different clients across public and private sector, as well as in the health sector as well. So it's been an interesting journey for a lot of people, particularly since COVID. Hopefully we've got something useful to share with you today.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Chloe. I'm Director of Client Success at Pro Insight Mystery Shopping. We predominantly do mystery shopping within the health and fitness sector, helping organisations map out their customer journey, but we also do a lot outside of the sector as well, which is quite interesting. I started my career in the sector selling memberships, and then Sarah, who's in front of me, she had a few babies, so I got to go up to National Sales Manager at Parkwood, and that's how I ended up where I am now.
Amazing, thank you. I'm going to kick straight into it. So how can businesses, specifically independents, identify emerging trends within the sector?
So I think there's 2 parts to that question for me. I think the first thing is, how do you identify those trends? So there's so many resources out there for you. So you're sat here right now, that's step 1. Actually attending those industry events, attending different talks, and being involved in the industry and not taking a backseat. There's a lot of publications, we get the industry reports and the insights that are coming out. And I think it's really important not just to look within the UK market, to look at what's going on globally, because whilst we do well at certain things, we are substantially behind other countries still. And there's a lot more innovation happening outside of the UK. So there's a real opportunity there to be able to innovate and bring new things to the UK. And there's plenty of online and digital resources, forums, organisations and groups where you can gain that information. The second part for me is, how do you actually identify those trends? You've got the reports, you've got the analysis, you've got the opportunities there, but how do you actually bring those to your business? And I think that's the really key part for me. Don't be afraid to innovate. Don't be afraid to actually think outside the box. One of the scariest statistics is that 1 in 10 studios and gyms, independents, are profitable. So 9 out of 10 are not remotely sustainably profitable. So take a look around now in the room. How many of you are gym operators here or studio operators? There will be a handful here, hopefully none of you, because you're here investing and developing your businesses. But the numbers are really scary. And actually, if you want to stay out of that terrifying statistic, you've got to innovate, you've got to evolve, and you've got to embrace change. And I think it's very much about understanding the opportunity, assessing it, risk analysis, and taking those educated risks to make sure that you are bringing your business forward. And there's some real success stories out there. Some of the clients we're working with at the moment, so we've got Leslie Parker over in Canada, and she's very happy for us to share her numbers with you. She saw a 79% growth in her revenue from 2022 to 2023. And it was primarily because she looked at her current operating model, she identified opportunities to add auxiliary services and drive additional revenue streams, and most importantly, she streamlined her sales and marketing process. And with the studios we work with across Studio Grow, the biggest thing we see is that small studios and gym operators often don't know their numbers. They can maybe roughly tell you how many members they've got, but if you get into the nitty-gritty of what's your cost per acquisition, What's your lead to intro ratios, intro to sale ratios? How many members do you need to be profitable? Where's your growth? They don't have that detail in their business. So the first thing is to understand those numbers. And I think we'll come on to that a bit more later. But the second thing is then to utilize that information, utilize that insight that you have to take educated risks ultimately.
Just to add to that I think where Alina's talking about where's your innovation coming from, and obviously these things are absolutely great, but what I would recommend is don't look at your direct competitors and sort of look outside of the sector, and what are, those sort of key brands like Amazon, Apple, what are they doing and how can you replicate that within your business model? So, for example, David Lloyd, they don't want to be compared to Virgin Active. When we present sort of benchmarking results on that, they're not interested. They want to be compared to Mercedes-Benz. How does their customer experience align with the Mercedes-Benz customer experience? So I would think about what can you sort of replicate from other brands that, it might be a completely different business model, but what are they doing really well and how can you bring that into your club?
And I'd just add one extra thing, which is really about avoiding being a magpie. Just because it's shiny and new doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the right fit for you and your business. If you're going to deliver something, then make sure you're making the right choices based on an educated analysis of what your business requires. And then once you've done that analysis and you've made the choice, then invest in it, work at it, and then apply it successfully, because that implementation is pretty crucial. It's all well and good having something that looks great out of the box. It's going to do everything that you want it to do. But if you're not actually implementing it successfully, you're not really going to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for.
Chloe, to come back to you on that point there where you were talking around David Lloyd comparing themselves to Mercedes, so there's that similar sort of market there that those people that are using both, how would an independent be able to influence that? Or like go around the same
Influence
way?
it.
Not influence it. How would they be able to look at another sector with the same target audience, same target market?
Yeah, okay. I guess it's looking at who do you admire to be. So I'll give you an example. I think very much in this sector, when we look at the digital customer journey, we've always accepted that if I leave an online inquiry at your club, it's acceptable for you to reply to me via email within 24 hours. And we've always just said that's great. And if you're doing that, well done. I think Snap Fitness were the first organisation I saw who measured that in a different way, where they said, it's not quick enough compared to what the consumer expects. So think about your consumers. What are they after? And they basically say, if you get a lead come in, if you don't call them back within 5 hours, you should fail your mystery shop, because we want to be the first. We want to be the quickest. So it's looking at consumer trends as well. There's lots of stuff. I really recommend looking up the Institute of Customer Service. That tells you what your customers' expectations are right now, and then from that they'll link to case studies around what does the consumer want and how a brand's matching that, and then from there you can start to tailor what should your customer journey be based on that.
I'll just add to that as well. I think one of the really important things, and Chloe's touched on it there, is you need to understand who your client avatar are. So who are your members? And I don't just mean, are they male, female, are they age, this, that, and the other. You need to get really granular with that information and think about what are their interests? Where do they go for their coffee? What brands do they associate with? Are they a Mercedes? Do they drive a Mercedes or do they drive a Ford Focus? So really understanding your client base, and you may have varying demographics. You might have you might have some Gen X plus some baby boomers, for example. But really dig into that information, because that will then drive what you are then presenting within your club and what you're aspiring to be, and will determine the level of service, the level of product, the type of offering you're going to have available for them.
Oh,
sorry.
I've got my own mic.
You've got your own.
I'm special, I've got my own one. So talking of granular detail, and I think, Tiff, this is a question kind of directed for you. So where do we look at, what does digital transformation mean for business today, and how can that be influenced?
So the concept of digital transformation has changed quite a lot, particularly in this sector. So COVID kind of spurred people on to be making decisions and making changes far more rapidly than I think as a sector we were ready to do. It ended up resulting in people making a lot of snap decisions, impulse choices, so that they could have something rather than nothing in order to be able to cater for their clients. don't have to do that now. Digital transformation is about employing tech at scale that can improve the services that you're delivering, not just to your customers, but your own user experience in terms of what your back-end systems are operating on, and also making sure that you're making efficiencies within how you operate and your processes and what you're delivering, and then making sure that as an end result, you're managing to continue that connection with your customers. So from a digital transformation perspective, the key thing is really understanding what your current ecosystem is. If you've no idea what data you're getting at the moment, or you have no idea what systems you're working with or what their capabilities are, then it's going to put you on a back foot as to how you can move forwards. So taking some time to really understand what are the pinch points, where are the areas that your teams operationally are struggling with, how can you improve those areas, and is it a system or is it a process issue? Once you've done that full analysis of what your ecosystem can look like, you can make educated choices about whether or not the system needs to change, the process needs to change, or a combination of the two, or whether there are genuine gaps in what your technology stack is looking like, and you need to integrate and work with third parties that can fill that space for you. If you're going to deliver something that's in a digital transformation strategy space, you need to be making sure that that really aligns with what you're trying to deliver as a business as a whole. So don't just pick and choose the bits that look lovely. You need to make sure that, is that going to help you to achieve the KPIs that you're trying to achieve? Because ultimately, if you're not measuring it, you can't manage it. So you need to make sure that those two pieces align and that that tech stack is supporting you with every step along the way.
Amazing. So to build on that, so once you've kind of looked at that ecosystem and where you are, what do you see being the emerging trends and the emerging technologies over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think AI is the big one that everyone's talking about, that people are already using, already engaging with, whether or not you've realised that you're doing it or not. So that's whether you're using AI as part of the service delivery or to support your sales and marketing teams, or whether or not you're using them to extend how your brand and connection continues beyond the four walls that you've actually got. So, you know, whether that's enabling people to work out from home but still stay engaged with you as a brand, continue that conversation so that if they need sales support, FAQs, so on and so forth, there's a lot of opportunity in how you use AI. You can view it as having a digital employee that can enhance your services and add to the resource mechanisms that you wouldn't otherwise be able to cater for, especially at the times that people want it. People have a desire to have things now. They don't want to be waiting. As Chloe was saying, you know, a 24-hour response time used to be great, but it's not what people want anymore. They want that immediacy. So there's an opportunity there to be utilising AI to really support your business and fill those gaps where you wouldn't be able to fill them with a person. It's not about replacing, it's about supporting. AR and VR as part of supporting what your in-person offering looks like as well. That's a huge experiential piece that people are looking for. And people are really engaging with not just the physical aspect of what they're going through, but it's a holistic thing. So it's about what they see, what they hear, and they want to be able to take something from those sessions. And where you're adding AR and VR, it can really add to that in-person experience. So huge opportunity in gamification, whether that's using it to enhance that member retention piece, about creating that customer loyalty, or just rewarding people for being your loyal members. People are looking for connections with brands. They're not just interested in what you do, they're interested in why you do it. So aligning all of those aspects together is a pretty crucial piece of the puzzle.
I've just forgotten what I was going to say. No, it's gone now. I can't even think of what I was going to say. I think with that, it's all about making a seamless journey as well. And I think what we tend to find is our digital journeys are very clunky. And it's, you know, how many people now you've got to tap in with a card, and then you've got something else for the locker, and then you've got a different app, and it's all about bringing it into one place, but also testing it heavily to make sure it works. Because tech can fail. I think we're guilty of maybe relying on it too much at times. You still need that human presence and experience there to back it up when it does. But a lot of the stuff we did in COVID is where we sort of everyone had to pivot, as they all say, to this digital transformation and make everything more online, etc. had very little time to test it. So, building things within 3 weeks where usually it would take months. So a lot of the work we've done is just sort of flooding websites, apps with mystery shoppers just to understand, does every touch point work seamlessly, and were there any hurdles? And I think in this sector we're quite guilty of sort of putting barriers up unnecessarily. So yeah.
One of the things I think as a takeaway, if you're sat there thinking, okay, this all sounds super expensive, this sounds super challenging, I don't have the team, I don't have the knowledge, it's a lot simpler than you think to actually look at the improvements you can make from a technology perspective within your business. And one of the big things that we've looked at within our business and that we work with a lot of our clients on is really firstly identifying what your tech stack looks like, because I think a lot of the time you don't think about all the different pieces. And then you go, I use an SMS service. Oh, I have a HR system for my team. I have this, I have that, I have mail, my CRM system. So firstly, really identify what you're spending, because I guarantee you it will be a lot more than you necessarily think it is, and there'll be some savings and economies you can make there. The second part of it is to look at how you can use technology, in particular things like AI and some of the software out there that's very cost effective, to save your time. As owner-operators, most of you are the marketing manager, you are the sales manager, you're the facility manager, you're probably coaching, you're wearing multiple hats. So managing your time efficiently is key. And actually by using things like AI, even things, simple tools like ChatGPT, and really digging in, you can save yourself hours. And what we've seen with our senior management team within the business, we've been able to, by teaching them how to use some of those tools, and most of it's been done by self-learning and online learning, they're saving about 15 hours a month per person on things like analysing the data, reporting, marketing, all those simple things. And the same with, we're using some imagery tools where you can put the detailing of the type of imagery you want for your brand rather than having to spend thousands on photo shoots. And the quality of the images that are coming back is just incredible. So it's looking at how you can make small changes that are going to save you both time and money. And the big thing for me, technology for the smaller players allows you to level the playing field with the big operators. If you're going to have a Pure Gym opening on your doorstep, or you've got a David Lloyd around the corner, or even another independent gym or studio, you need to have a competitive advantage. And you need to firstly know what that is, but secondly, by using technology, you can actually provide a much more bespoke, personalised service that sometimes the bigger operators aren't able to do.
It's as if you knew what my next question was going to be.
Sorry, Conor.
That's all right, you've just stolen my thunder there. But if I look around the room now, I see like a number of operators in the room, and I think everything we're talking around there is around tech and how we utilise it, right? But we're a people-first industry. So having that added effect to knowing your members' names, knowing that they're coming into the sites, looking at their visits, look at the ratios, and then that's where your members of staff are going to be able to leverage that information that they've got. And I think, like you said, looking at your CRMs and how you can pull it all together. I try to time card everything that I do in terms of what the effective hours I am doing and how much that's costing the business, and then how we can implement that. If you're looking at the AI stuff and if you're looking there, it's where you're going to have your savings, and it's going to, like you said, going to cost you a lot more than you think when you've got 4 members of staff doing 40 hours a week on something that could be done with 1 member of staff, and then using the other guys to effectively work with members and work with all the various roles you've got across your clubs.
Yeah, can I just add something? There's a huge opportunity to use your tech to automate a lot of the manual processes that you don't need a person to be doing. And then it means that the value of your people is in the product that you're actually providing to your customers. They don't need to be dealing with the FAQs. They don't need to be dealing with the menial side of things that you can automate. You want to be making sure that your investment in people is about the people rather than dealing with an email. So use the tech to your advantage. Think of it as a digital employee that will pick up that work rate, that will relieve that 15 hours so that that person has the time and capacity to be talking to your customers. And then on top of that, you want to be making sure that as a whole, it's your online processes align with what you're delivering in person. Then if you're going to elevate an experience, it has to be elevated all the way through. So don't give them something that's spectacular in person if you can't match that online, because that's going to be one of the first things that they'll experience. That'll be one of the first things that they see. So even the real basic things like getting your website journeys right is crucial to be making sure that you're not losing those leads before they even get through the door.
We've just started a piece of work with GLL, who have gone very much to a self-service kiosk model in their reception areas. And the idea is that it should be seamless from the moment you go online and book an activity to walking into the centre. And what we've seen is, yes, once you've got that app and you get through the turnstile, great, you're away, but it is very clunky in terms of that booking process. And you have to click multiple areas and you're not sure what you've booked and how much is it. But one of the things that you'd probably look at that and go, well, is there a need for mystery shopping that if there's no people to mystery shop, but they're still very focused on there needs to, the people now are front of house hosts who should be greeting you, making sure you know where you're going and just taking that extra care that probably, when a receptionist is busy with a queue of people out the door and they just end up pushing the turnstile open so that everyone can get through and that they're under less pressure, they can actually put their time into making people feel part of the club a bit more, rather than sort of just making it transactional.
Then probably just one other thing actually is you've got the opportunity to be quite transparent. People are looking for authenticity in brands these days. The harder they have to work to find out what you offer, what price you offer it at, who you are, what the experience is going to be like, they'll disengage before they get there. So the more authentic you are and the more obvious you make it about what it is that you're delivering, the easier it is for people to understand why they should come to you rather than one of your competitors or one of the bigger players. You also have a significant advantage as a smaller operator that you can be a lot more agile. You don't have to pivot. It's not a massive ship that you're turning if you decide to move from one tech to another. You've got the opportunity to be going, this isn't working for me. Why isn't it working for me? Can I work with them to make this better, to resolve the issues? Is there anything that they do that I didn't realize that they did that I can use to resolve some of these issues that my teams are experiencing, my customers are experiencing? If the answer is no, then look to other solutions and whether or not they can either fill the gaps and work in partnership. You'll find a lot of solutions will do 80% of the same things. It's that 20% of whether or not you can work with them to bespoke it to what you're trying to deliver as an experience, or whether or not a different solution is the right one to move to. So never be afraid of making the change, but make an educated choice if you're going to do it.
So what would be the initial strategy that you would put in place for a customer-centric focus?
So I think from a digital transformation perspective, the key thing is understanding why you're making the change and what it is you're trying to achieve in the first place. It has to align with what your strategic goals are. You need to be able to measure it, and it has to match up with your KPIs. Once you've identified these are the reasons behind why you're doing it, you want to understand what have you already got in place, review those options. As Alina was saying, you might be spending money on tech that actually you don't need, you're not getting the most from, it's not doing the job for you. And there's an opportunity where you can use best-in-class solutions in multiple different places. Tech is moving, particularly if you're moving away from some of the legacy technology offerings that exist across the sector. You've got the opportunity to work with best-in-class solutions in multiple different areas. So it doesn't have to be one size fits all and then you kind of make it work because you have to. You can just go, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to integrate with this third party to provide that part of the solution. Know what your resource is, know what your budgets are, and then understand where you've got the negotiating power to work out actually what will work for me and what combination is going to give me the best experience, back end, front end, and optimize that user experience so that you have that seamless digital pathway so it doesn't feel clunky, it doesn't feel like someone's, you're going to lose them en route. Once you kind of mapped out that path, then you need to make sure that you're taking your team on board with you. So everyone who's delivering, from your front of house team on reception to the people who are responsible for maintenance, to everybody needs to be on board with you. So take them on the journey from the very beginning. Find out what isn't working for them, what needs to be better, what works really well that they wouldn't want you to change. Please, God, don't take that away from me. And then when you've had those conversations, gathered that information, if that's what you want, the two might not align. So you have to make sure you've done the due diligence on your own end, so that when you're confronted with the opportunity to make a decision, you actually know who's going to be able to best meet your needs and cater for that. And then you have to make sure that you get that implementation process right. So make sure you've got the right people involved from the very beginning. You've got that resource in-house to be able to use. You know you've got that expertise. Take advantage of it. But if you don't and you need support, then ask your third-party suppliers, ask outside your own in-house team and see where you can get that support to be able to make sure that the implementation process goes as well as possible. And once your tech stack's in place, it's not a magic tool. It's not going to do everything on its own. You absolutely have to continue to invest and continue to support it and continue to make sure that the resource that's applied to it will deliver that successful outcome. So that means that you know who's using it well, what the bugbears are, and actually what can you change. Learn from the data and the outputs that are coming through all of your systems and iron out those journeys, because nothing's going to be perfect from the start. So if there's an area that you kind of know, do you know what, this part of the journey is not working for me, change it, make it different. You've got the opportunity with any kind of tech deployment that you can test it one way and then you can test it another. What works better for you? So take advantage of that and don't be afraid to pivot and don't be afraid to continue to make those changes along the way.
So utilising that sort of feedback loop, so there's lots of information incoming there. So what's the best way to collate that information and then pass it through? I suppose it's more kind of Chloe's side in terms of the customer facing stuff. So
yeah, I would say in terms of understanding the data, you can never get too much data, I don't think. I think whether you're getting NPS scores from your members or you're doing mystery shopping, I think you need to be consistent with it. Quite a lot of, so say like Tiff said about continuing to test it. If you just do, we get lots of clients who just do a research project once to go. We just want to understand where we are here. So they do the research and then they kind of sit on it for ages. I think you need to be consistent in always ensuring that you're getting feedback from multiple different channels to really paint a good picture of how your business is performing and whether it's making your customers happy. And then from that, it's an ongoing journey where you're always obtaining insights, making changes. Like Tiff says, you know, at any point you can pivot and change it. That's what your opportunity is to do. So I think just don't do a light touch, keep it consistent.
And I would just add to that, there's a bit of a caveat on the data thing. I'm a big believer in data and analytics, but you have to actually use them. There's no point in running a report if you're not going to actually apply the findings of it, or you don't understand why you're running the report in the first place. So know what data you need, why you need it, how does that correlate with the KPIs and the business processes and what you're trying to achieve. If you can align all of those pieces, then that data is worth having, because then you can actually action it. And if it's actionable data, you can make change. You can actually influence the experiences that you're going to be delivering to your customers, and you can continue to improve. And or if you're already the best of the best, you can maintain and you can continue to make sure that nothing is slipping away. But don't just feel like, oh, Christ, I've got to run a report like this and I've got to have these numbers, I've got to know these numbers. Why do you need to know them? Because if they're just figures that you're not doing anything with, that's not going to add value to your business.
Does anyone use like Power BI? Anything like that? I really recommend that. It's a good way, because that's the thing, you'll end up with lots of different portals and logins and all of that. It's a really good system that pulls everything into one. So, you know, from your operations to your data to your sort of feedback and so on. It's a really good way to understand those key trends, because pulling that all together will tell you some sort of story and paint a picture of where you're at and where you need to get to, and maybe what's disgruntling customers, what can be better. Because that's the thing, you can end up with, like Tiff saying, so many different reports, you've not got the right data, it's not giving you anything, and yeah, you've really got to make sure it's actionable.
And I think whether it's introducing new technology or embracing potentially any emerging trends and things you're seeing in the sector, or like obviously Chloe mentioned outside of the sector, the really important thing is to think about how that works as part of your client journey. And again, coming back to what I mentioned earlier, the first stage of that is who is your client and understanding who your client is before you build out your client journey. But your client journey, you'll be amazed by how many touch points you should have as part of that process. And that starts from the pre-purchase side of things. So when they're first engaging with your brand across your multi-channel marketing, they need to be, once they've inquired as a lead, they need to have at least 7, if not up to 14 points of contact with you before they even make a purchase. And at the moment in the industry, as an average, we're converting only about 18% of our leads into an intro or a trial-based option. And then we're only converting 5 to 15% of those on average to a recurring member. So the numbers there are low, and we've got to look at how we improve that. And by implementing a really detailed and systematic client journey, improving your sales and marketing procedures, you can increase that. And we're seeing clients now hitting around the kind of 30 to 40%, if not higher, on lead to intro. And then from intro to sale, we're seeing 50 to 60%. And think about how much less you have to work if you don't have to get as many leads, if you're looking after your leads better. So really think about and map out that journey. So your pre-purchase, what happens before they buy their intro pack or their trial or whatever that hook for you to get them into your business is. When they're in that intro pack, let's say they're on a 2-week trial. What are your touch points with them? And I don't just mean the digital touch points. I want you to factor in your face-to-face. At what point are you going to call them? At what point are you going to talk to them in club? I can't remember whether it was Chloe or Tiff mentioned, one of the best things you can do is just use someone's name. It's the sweetest sound anyone can hear is their own name, and I think we underestimate how powerful that is. So think about those touch points, scope them out, and make sure every single member of your team understands their responsibility in that journey. When it comes to those touch points as well, you want to make sure you are automating it. 7 to 11 touch points is too much for one poor person to be emailing, calling constantly. So automate all the emails and SMSs where you can. And actually, if you're using a good CRM system and booking system, you should be able to create some really great automations with kind of technology around if this, then that. The second part of that is your intro journey. So the points of contact during that intro. Again, it's not much different. You want to be talking 7+ points of contact. Then don't forget, once they've signed up, and this is where I think we see the biggest gap, is we forget about that client communication. We continue to sell to our clients. We often send them lots of kind of marketing emails. This is happening, do this, do that. But you really want to focus on that 90-day client journey and the points of contact that have throughout those 90 days. And this is where you can utilize the technology you've put in place, again, with automations, and where you've freed up your team's time by being more efficient with what they're doing, they will have more time to be customer-facing. And those first 8 weeks of your client's journey are pivotal and are going to really impact your retention. So the long-term gain here is huge.
Just on where Alina was talking about starting with sort of where does your customer go first, I would actually really recommend put yourself in your customer's shoes and start with Google. And this is something that we partner with UK Active on the awards, and we mystery shop everyone who enters for Club Centre of the Year. But one thing we have is type in club, gym in the area. So where are we now? So gym in Solihull. Who's coming up first? Is David Lloyd coming up first, or is the village down the road coming up first? They're competing against each other. And then it's little things like, you'll be amazed how many get it wrong, but you're Google opening hours, not matching your actual opening hours. So we get it all the time where, we send mystery shoppers through that customer journey, and then clubs will say, well, we weren't open then, that's why they couldn't get through. And well, Google says you are, so you're losing a lot of customers there. So I'd really take it right back to the very start of thinking, if I was looking for a club to join, where would I start, and then go through it that way.
Just conscious of time, and I'd like to open up to questions. However, I'm going to ask you, and this is rogue, this is just coming from me now as well, so you haven't prepped for this one, but just give me quick 30 seconds on the topic of it, how we can stay competitive in a local area where we're competing against others. Alina will start with you and Tiffany.
Okay, pressure on. So I think my top tips are, firstly, understand your business, understand your numbers, understand your clients is the first step. Once you have that information, put in place the processes and systems to be able to communicate effectively with your leads and your clients. I think the third part is, when you are looking at making any changes, embracing new trends through to new technology, take time. Don't rush into making decisions, and identify what your business needs, where your gaps are, what the opportunities are, and how you're going to implement those changes and how you're going to monetize it. There's no point in making changes if it's not going to either make it more time efficient, cost save, or drive revenue. So always think about those key factors when you are looking to make those decisions.
That's a tough act to follow. I'm not sure I've got anything significant to add, but the one thing that I would say is that data and analytics are your friends on every single step of the way. So whether that is about nurturing your leads, whether that's about your social media marketing campaigns, whether that's about your customer loyalty programs, at every single point, you've got the opportunity to see what is and isn't working. And I said it before, so I'll say it again. You've got the opportunity to test. So if something doesn't feel right, it's not getting the traction that you need, it's not doing the job that you want it to do, stop doing it. Try something different. Identify where the errors are and then make those changes. I think Alina summed up really nicely all the different things that you can look to be doing to be making sure that you're maintaining that competitive edge. But I just think you've got to really be considering, how are you going to use that information to influence what your next step would be?
We're all trying to create loyal members, and I really think the best way to generate new leads is through referrals, and that's not running a referral campaign. What you want is, Tiff comes to me and says, I'm looking to join a gym, and I recommend the club I'm at. The best way to do that, from the research we've done, is if your service is fast, friendly and knowledgeable, you're going to create customers who are loyal to you, they like what you're delivering. That's what makes them happy. It's that everything's seamless, it's personalised, and there's people on hand to help them when they need it. That's what's going to make people sticky with you, and that's what's going to make people recommend you and help you grow. I do want to touch on one thing. I think the consumer engagement stuff that UK Active done is great, and it talks about how one of the reasons people aren't buying at the moment is due to cost. Now, I believe that if we create experiences that people are happy to pay for, that won't be an issue, and that's the hurdle and the barrier that we've got right now.
Absolutely, it's perceived costs, right? So if you break it down into how that person feels when they're using the facility, what they're getting out of it, long-term, short-term, it's educational, and how we can really educate and get from that 15% up to 20% to an extra 5 million more people by 2030, which is what our UK Active's goal is over the next few years. I'm just going to open up any questions in the audience. Amazing, it means that we've done everything. Go on, Hattie.
You spoke about, I guess, the soft set of skills that is required to kind of make some of that user journey when people are in facility, in particular. How do we ensure our workforce are obviously gaining the relevant qualifications to be PTs, gym instructors, etc. But how do we really build soft skills on how to address and identify that people need that support when they're in facility? They need that little bit of a reassurance, like, when are you coming next, and did you enjoy today? How do we really grow that?
I feel that was directed at me. We were having some eye contact there. So I think there's multiple facets to this. Obviously, you've got the basic need for qualification, and I'm a huge fan of CPD, and I'm a huge fan of learning through experiences as well. We had this conversation, I was speaking to Lucy Finley-Beale, mouthful now with her double-barred name, earlier about event attendance, and we were talking about Elevate, we were talking about independent gyms, we were talking about UK Active events. I think we undervalue the importance of these events for our employees as well. We always send our senior managers, our owners, our operators. We don't often actually send our personal trainers, our receptionists, our cleaners. And yes, I get there's a cost to that, both covering their shift, the operational challenges that come with it. I run a business, we've got 60 plus employees, I get it. But equally, there is some real value in that, and you don't have to send them all at once, because I think there's learning that can happen there. But then I think the most important thing is to invest time speaking with your team, training your team. If you make them part of that journey, and Tiff made the perfect point when it came to the technology piece, get them involved with these processes from the start. Let them help you map out your client journey, your member journey, all of these key pieces. And if they're involved from the start, firstly, they take more ownership, they're more accountable, they feel valued. If you don't bring them into that process, they just feel you're dictating to them and you're telling them to do something. Find out what they want, find out what they're seeing, because they will have a different perception to you as well, especially as you begin to step away from that operator into more of a kind of traditional CEO type role and your business scales and grows. So train them, invest in them, one-to-ones, feedback. If you see them doing something well, make sure you're shouting about it. On the flip side, if you see them doing something where there's an opportunity to improve, or they're not delivering something in the way you want the client journey to be delivered, don't be afraid to have those difficult conversations and actually go back, train and mentor and help them.
I would definitely agree with that on customer service training specifically. If you think about lifeguards, you're qualified to save someone if they look unsettled in the pool, but like, when are we actually giving them customer service training? And that is important for lifeguards as well. And I think talking about making it a positive, praise them when they're doing well. One thing that we encourage implementing in every mystery shop is, was there a standout member of staff? And we're using that as a way to highlight people who are doing great work in these organisations that maybe like the CEO doesn't see every day. So it's giving them praise and helping them. And I think we've got a real challenge, sort of definitely coming out of the pandemic, where that younger generation who maybe had their university life locked up and didn't get to engage with people, that's where we've got a real challenge now. And we've done work with Starbucks where they literally had to take it back to basics and sort of strip out all the nice stuff in their mystery shop that makes Starbucks the brand they are, and go, were they giving you eye contact? Because kids don't know how to give eye contact anymore. So it's that constant, those the soft skills that we need to be measuring and making sure they're getting that customer service training.
Anything else from the crowd?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's a bit of a road question, but when you are like a sole, like myself, I own a gym and I'm the head coach and etc. and that sort of thing, and you try and stay ahead of the research to be in the forefront of what people are thinking within the scientific community and all that sort of thing. A lot of the information that you've talked about is the marketing message behind making yourself big standout sort of thing, to try and stay ahead of the game. Do you have any way or things that you would measure to be able to promote, so like say for example a new piece of research comes out and it says that doing a particular exercise is particularly beneficial, but it makes you a bit of a standout in the industry because you said it and nobody believes you, but you have conviction in it because you've read research and you've been thinking about this for years, hypothetical.
I'm keen to know what you've done.
You don't want to be the person at the front who is effectively the person who's putting their neck on the block to get cut down, but at the same time you know it's important. Is there any things to... Just
do it. I think you've got to, you could be that person that changes the whole way we look at health and fitness.
I was going to say the same thing. Build your own evidence based. If you know that you've read the evidence, you know this is something that's effective, you've got a client cohort that you know that this would work really well for based on what their goals are, then prove it yourself. And then you can create and generate your own case studies. And that adds a huge amount of power, because that demonstrates that not only have you engaged effectively with what those customers want to achieve and what their goals are, but that you're at the forefront of the research and that you're looking forwards to actually how can this be applied to a broader population group. And then once you've created those case studies and those people are achieving the outcomes that they want to achieve because you've implemented something different, those people will, that adds huge amount of weight. Someone saying, I achieved this because he did this, or the process that they followed, that's going to be so much more powerful than a generic, I lost weight an X amount. If it's a case of literally you're solving a lot of problems for people because you're testing a new technique, then take them on board with you and generate those case studies, because that's a huge marketing tool for you.
was going to say, to build on that, simplify it down as well. It doesn't have to mean that they can squat at a better angle. It means that they can pick up their shopping, you know, how it can actually be implemented as well.
I think your last point there comes back to, again, that message around if you understand your clients and you understand what their drivers are, what their reason for being there is, and their true why, not I just want to lose weight or I want to get stronger. Like you say, they want to be able to pick up their shopping, play with their grandkids. Put it in terms that's real to them, but don't be afraid to be a thought leader. Someone's got to stand out from the crowd.
Yes, sir.
My question kind of continues a bit along those lines in terms of where do you think the balance is between gut feel and data? Because sometimes people get overcome with data and they forget their gut feelings. Well, how do you see the balance between those two?
So I think it depends what you're using the data for. So if you're trying to, if your gut feeling is that doing this approach is going to be the right thing, use the data to back it up. So then it means that you know that the gut instinct that you had is actually providing the outcomes and the results that you want. If you follow your gut feel and you've got nothing to back it up and it fails and it goes the complete opposite way, then if the data isn't supporting it, then the likelihood is that actually it wasn't the right thing to test out. But there's nothing wrong with pivoting and there's nothing wrong with trying something new. If you know the demographics of your area, for example, and you think actually taking this approach would be a huge appeal to my local community and could have make a big difference, try it. You don't have to try it on a mass scale, but you can test the theory and see actually, hang on, this is my hypothesis. Can I actually apply it and make it work? And can I do it effectively? Use the data to back it up. That's what I would suggest.
I think probably if you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, a lot of where they've got to now, how they've got there has been on gut feel, but I think also they've got the right people around them to do the test and measuring for them, and I think that's a big challenge as well when we are looking to test new systems or digital transformation pieces as well. You've got to have the right resource to be on top of it all the time and making sure it's working and aligning, and really, you know, you want them to be proving that your gut feeling was right.
Amazing. I think we're going to draw to a close just there. Guys, can I have a round of applause for the panel with us, please?